So in other words, it's only about 15 to 20% of firms which are going to go onto the SQE this year. So the vast majority of law firms are saying, no, do the LPC this year. It's next year and the year after that we're going to transition to the SQE. As I say, it's a phased introduction of the change.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Student Lawyer podcast series. Whether you're at school, sixth form, university, thinking about a career in law or exploring law careers, you're in the right place. We are the one-stop shop for student lawyers. If you'd like to join the Student Lawyer as a writer, please email hello@thestudentlawyer.com. This episode is sponsored by the University of Law. The University of Law offers a range of undergraduate and postgraduate courses and master's degrees alongside an award-winning pro bono clinic so you can build up your legal experience while studying. And their Experienced Career Service will enable you to put your best foot forward when launching your legal career. The courses are employment focused and based on real legal practice so you'll be better prepared for the workplace. Part-time and online study options are available so you can work and study at the same time. Click the link in the description box of the podcast to find out more about the courses on offer. Welcome to the Student Lawyer podcast series. My name's Camilla and I'm a future trainee solicitor and current LPC student at the University of Law. And in today's episode, we are delighted to be joined by Professor Peter Crisp, who is Deputy Vice Chancellor at the University of Law. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing the legal practice course, otherwise known as the LPC, finding out what it is, how the course is structured, and what the benefits are of doing the course this year, amongst many other questions. So make sure you stick around to hear all of that. So without further ado, let's welcome Peter onto the show. Welcome to the Student Lawyer podcast, Peter. It's so great to have you here with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really pleased to be able to speak with you.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. So I wondered if you could begin the episode by explaining what the LPC is for our listeners who maybe aren't quite sure what it is.
Yeah, certainly. So I thought it might just be useful if I just recapped on the current route to qualification as a solicitor. So the Solicitors Regulation Authority, the SRA, so the Solicitors Regulation Authority, which is the professional body that regulates all solicitors in England and Wales, has set down a route, a pathway to qualification as a solicitor, which is the current route. As I'm sure listeners will be aware, it's about to change, but obviously today we're focusing on the legal practice course, so that's what I'm going to talk about. So in order to qualify as a solicitor under the current route, you have to either have done the LLB, which is the 3-year, undergraduate law degree, or you're a non-law graduate, so you graduated in history or maths or another subject, and you've done a conversion course, typically the graduate diploma in law, or as you know, here at the University of Law, we offer it as a master's degree as well. So you've done a law conversion course. So in other words, whether you're an LLB student or a non-law graduate, you've reached the same point, either through your LLB or through your conversion program. At that point, the pathways meet, and everybody does the legal practice course, the LPC. And that's the compulsory stage of education, of training, in order to qualify as a solicitor. It's the vocational stage, as we often refer to it as. The legal practice course is regulated by the SRA, so the content is to some extent set down by the SRA. So they've said this is the syllabus and this is the structure of the course. And I'll go over that in a moment or two. The University of Law is validated by the Solicitors Regulation Authority to deliver the course, and we also assess it. So if you come to us to do the legal practice course, we also set the exams, we mark the exams, and we give you your results. So it's the legal practice course, the compulsory stage of vocational training. After you've completed the LPC, you then go on to do your 2-year training contract in your law firm or possibly in-house, depending on where you're doing it. And at the end of the 2-year training contract, you're then fully qualified as a solicitor. You're no longer a trainee solicitor, and you are then admitted onto the role of solicitors, and you can practice. So that's the route. LLB, or non-law degree, plus the GDL, followed by the legal practice course compulsory vocational program, followed by the 2-year training contract. So that's the sort of helicopter view, as it were, of the LPC.
Thank you for explaining that, Peter. And I've had conversations with people who've been interested in doing the LPC and have asked me what my experience is. And a common question that comes up is how the course is actually structured and what the teaching method and teaching style is like. So I wondered if you could go into that for us.
Yes, of course. I mean, as I said, the structure is been established by the SRA. So every LPC, not just the one at the University Hall, but every LPC will have 3 compulsory subjects that you must study. You'll have a choice of 3 up to 3 electives. And then there are the skills, 5 skills that you must also study, plus a few other bits and pieces as well. So the 3 compulsories, every LPC, you must study business law and practice. So that's essentially, companies, how businesses, are set up, partnerships and so on. So it's the basics of business and company law. That's a compulsory element. You must study dispute resolution, or also sometimes known as litigation, and some courses call it litigation. So that's how do you solve disputes? And obviously a large element of that is civil litigation, but you also study criminal litigation as part of that as well. And then the 3rd compulsory subject is property law and practice. So very simply, buying and selling houses, flats, commercial property and so on. So both domestic and residential conveyancing, and also business conveyancing, commercial property as well. So an understanding of those. And those are the 3 compulsory areas. And I think it's instructive that it's business law and practice. It's property law and practice. In other words, this is moving on from, say, your study of land law, where you looked at the structure of land law and how leases work and restrictive covenants and so on, to actually what happens in practice. How do you actually buy and sell property? What forms need to be completed? What are the formalities for doing this? How do you actually technically do it? So at the end of the compulsory stage, you're actually able to do conveyancing, for example. So that's the compulsory stage. You then have a choice of options, and they're called electives on the legal practice course on the LPC, and you choose 3 elective subjects. We have a very wide range. I think it's nearly 16 elective subjects that we offer. So, for example, if you were going into a high street practice, you might want to consider doing immigration law or family law. You might choose employment law as one of your 3. We have quite a lot of students who are studying with us who are going into city and commercial practice. And there, for example, they might well do private acquisitions, which is about buying and selling companies. It might be doing debt finances, which is about banking, or it might be equity finance, which is about floating, companies on the London Stock Exchange, for example. So there's a wide choice that you can choose from. Intellectual property is another popular subject. Personal injury and clinical negligence is another area. Again, if students go onto our website, they can see the full list of options that we offer. So you choose 3 electives. I say you choose 3. If you've already got a training contract before you join the University of Law for the LPC, that choice may well have been made for you, because some law firms say, actually, we want you to do these 3 electives. Or they may say, here's a list of 8 electives, you choose 3. So they may give you a restricted list. And obviously, if you're going into a city firm, it wouldn't make much sense to be studying immigration, because they don't do that, or private client, because again, large commercial firms often have no private client department. So obviously you need to choose electives that reflect the practice area that you want to go into or planning to go into. On top of that, then the skills that you require to be a solicitor. So for example, legal research, drafting, legal writing, advocacy, and interviewing and advising. And they're also compulsory skills as well. And they're sort of interwoven into the subjects that you study, because I think the second part of the question is, what is the teaching method style like? How do we deliver the program? Well, there are almost no lectures. Basically, lectures are a thing of the past. The focus of the learning for every individual student is in the small group session, so in the workshop. So it's a workshop style approach. You'll be in a large classroom with a maximum of 24 students in the class, often fewer, and you will be in 3 groups within the classroom, so a maximum of 6 per group. So you'll be on 3 tables, large tables, with 6 students as a maximum in that group. And it's a very interactive, skills-based approach to learning. For those technically minded in terms of educational sort of approach, we have something called prepare, engage, consolidate, and that is our sort of mantra to students, is that before the workshop, there'll be preparation that you have to do. That will typically involve reading. It could be case law, it could be statutes, it could be regulation, it could be part of a manual. But also as part of that, it won't just be reading, it will also be engaging with that material in a really interactive way. So you'll be posed questions and you'll be asked to have done tasks before you get to the class. So there's a preparation stage. The next stage of that, of course, is what happens in the classroom. You will have an expert tutor. All of our tutors at the University of Law who teach on the legal practice course are qualified solicitors, or in some cases qualified barristers. So you'll be taught by a former practitioner, and they will engage with you with that materials. So obviously you bring the work that you've done, but also within the class, other tasks will be set. So they're very interactive and often quite physical, because we have whiteboards, we have smart boards in the classrooms, and you'll be working in small subgroups, say, of up to 6 students. You'll be presenting back to the class. You'll be doing drafting in the class. You might even be doing some legal research online. You might be looking at the Companies House website, all sorts of activities taking place. So they're very interactive, very, very engaging sessions. Obviously, the learning doesn't stop once you've had the 2-hour workshop. The learning then continues afterwards, because then the consolidation tasks. And that's making sure that you are comfortable with the learning that is taking place and checking your own knowledge and your own learning and your own understanding. One point I think is really important is the approach to skills, because a skill is not acquired by understanding what is involved when somebody else does it. You have to develop the processes and the ability to do it for yourself. So skills practice, particularly around legal research, drafting and writing, is absolutely crucial. A very dynamic way, I think, of learning on the legal practice course.
Thank you so much for that really in-depth explanation. I've been asked a few times by various people how the teaching and the course is structured. So that's definitely going to help a few people, I think. And I also just wanted to add from my own experience that the electives, the service that you offer in terms of helping you choose electives, I think we had some drop-in sessions at the beginning I'm doing it part-time, so
probably if you're full-time, it's probably in November, isn't it? Is that we have mini sessions, so we're like taster sessions of the electives. Yeah,
they were really helpful in helping me choose, and I really enjoy my electives. So yeah, just a little anecdote there. I
mean, that's an important point, actually, isn't it, Camilla? That obviously, you can choose how you study as well. You're a part-time student. We offer it full-time, and obviously part-time. We offer it part-time during the day, part-time evening, part-time weekend. And in fact, we have many locations around the country. We've got 15 campuses around the United Kingdom, but in fact our biggest campus is our 16th campus, which is our online campus, because we have a lot of students who study the LPC with us online, which is also a very popular option. So I think flexible study is a really important thing for students today.
I completely agree. So we know that there's several different options out there now in terms of studying pre-training contract, and I just wondered what the benefits of taking the LPC this September would be for students.
Yeah, well, as I said in my introduction, of course, many listeners will be aware that the route to qualification is changing with the introduction of the SQE. I'm afraid we live in a world of acronyms and initialisms, don't we? So the SRA is SQE. So the SQE is the Solicitor's Qualifying Exam. And this is being phased in at the moment to replace the legal practice course. So over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, the legal practice course will start to diminish and the SQE will take over. Our intelligence is that this September is the best year probably to take the LPC. I mean, you'll take it next year as well, and that's an option as well. But it's really from next year that the SQE will start to take over in a big way. How do I know this? Well, we did a survey in conjunction, legal cheek, which is the well-known website, did a survey in conjunction with us, asking law firms about their transition to the SQE and whether they would recommend students to do the LPC this September 2022, or whether students should do the SQE. And the data that we got back was very interesting. If I may just share it with you and listeners. 36% of firms said that they would transfer to the LPC next year. 42% of firms said they would transition to the SQE in 2024. So 36% saying they're going in 2023. 42% say they're going in 2024. So in other words, it's only about 15 to 20% of firms which are going to go onto the SQE this year. So the vast majority of law firms are saying, no, do the LPC this year. It's next year and the year after that we're going to transition to the SQE. As I say, it's a phased introduction of the change. So I think that's a very clear steer that students can feel confident that they can do the LPC this year and that there are training contracts and jobs available for them. So obviously SQE remains an option, so that is a possibility for students to consider. My own personal view is that we've only had one iteration of SQE 1 so far. It's only happened once. SQE 2, the students sat last month. The results of that don't come out, I think, until August. I think it's mid-August. I don't think the SRA have actually published the date of the results, but it's mid-August. The results will come out. I think it's an enormous change for students. My advice is stick with the tried and tested LPC route. We know it works. We get phenomenally high pass rates, tremendous employability statistics from that program. And law firms are saying they're sticking with the LPC for this year. So that would be my advice. I mean, obviously, students need to make their own independent decisions. And as I say, a small number of law firms are considering transitioning to SQE this year. But the majority of law firms are saying, no, stick with the LPC for this year. And, it is a tried and tested program. The feedback that we get from our students, from future trainees and from law firms is that it does prepare you extremely well for the rigors of the training contract. Particularly of the elective content, which is missing from the SQE. So I'm not sure what electives you're going to be studying, Camilla, or are studying, but the SQE does not, on its own, include any elective content. And law firms really value the fact that you come to the training contract having studied employment law, having studied family law or immigration or whatever is relevant to that particular firm's practice. So that's really, I think, why I would say, seriously consider doing the LPC this year. You could delay it to doing it next year, but as I said, from the data, about just over a third of firms will transition to the SQE next year, with the remaining ones probably going in 24 and then the stragglers over in 2025. So I think this is a really good year this September to be doing the legal practice course, in my opinion.
That's really interesting. I didn't actually know that the SQE didn't have electives. That's really interesting.
Yeah, well, just very, very briefly, because obviously we're talking mainly about the LPC.
Yeah.
The SRA have introduced SQE 1, which is hundreds of multiple choice questions, which is essentially testing you on the core practice areas that I outlined earlier, plus the knowledge from the LLB or the GDL from the core subjects from there. But it doesn't include any elective content. So, for example, there's no immigration law, there's no personal injury, there's no family law tested as part of SQE 1. And SQE 2 is pure skills, and it's very intensive on the skills, on advocacy, on legal research, legal writing, drafting, and so on, as we talked about earlier. Now, the University of Law has devised a master's degree, an LLM in legal practice that incorporates the SQ1 and SQ2, but also gives all students an option of doing elective content. So we've included our elective material as part of that LLM SQ1 program. But of course, you don't have to do the master's degree. You could just choose to do the SQ1 prep course and just hit SQ1. Mm-hmm. And if you've done that, you haven't studied any elective content, which for a lot of law firms is really, really crucial. I mean, if you're going into a firm which specializes in employment law and family law, and you turn up knowing nothing about that, never having studied it at all, that's a bit of a challenge for the firm and for you as an individual hitting the ground running as a trainee in that law firm. So that's why I say my advice is, do the tried and tested LPC this year, if that is an option for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of the people that I've spoken to have been quite keen to carry on and do the LPC because it is tried and tested, but they were just worried about whether firms would be moving over to the SQE. But the statistics that you've just provided are really helpful, and I'm sure they will reassure a lot of people. So yeah, thank you for that. So I suppose we're kind of touching on what we've spoken about already, but my next question is, if someone's questioning whether they should do the LPC or the SQE this year and cannot decide, what factors do you think they should consider to help them decide?
My view is first of all, cost and location. Yes, where you're going to do this. Because if you come to the University of Law, as I said earlier, we've got 15 campuses around the UK. And if you happen to be in Hong Kong, you can also do the LPC with us in Hong Kong. But I suspect that will be a tiny minority of students listening to this. And we also have our online campus as well, which means you can actually study the LPC with us, virtually any time, any place, anywhere. And I think that's a really important point for students, because as I said, as part of my introduction to the LPC, we are validated by the SRA, not just to deliver the program, but also to assess it. So we're the examiners. So the University of Law will examine you. We write the assessments, we mark the assessments, we process all the results and so on. And the fees for doing that, the cost of sitting the assessments, are included as part of the course fee. So if you do the legal practice course, which is our Leeds campus or in our Nottingham campus, the cost of doing the assessments is part of the course fee. If you do the SQE, you have to pay for the preparation course, whether that's just for the SQE1 preparation course or if you buy the whole master's degree, which includes SQE1, SQE2 and the additional content. But on top of that, you've got to pay Kaplan, who are the SQE provider appointed by the SRA, over £5,000 to sit the SQE. And if you fail an element of the SQE, there's no reason you have to pay the fee again. So it's actually arguably a more expensive option depending on how you do it. And I think that's, it's one distinct advantage of doing an LPC course is that the assessments are done by the University of Law. We have locations all around the country, really accessible. You can do it with us online. And that the fee you pay includes all the assessments. There's no additional fee to pay. So I think, being really brazen, cost is one obvious reason why you might want to consider the LPC. I also think then, look at what the profession is doing. As I said earlier, that survey reveals that the profession, by and large, is sticking with the LPC for this year and the traditional training contract. Because, of course, once SQE comes in, training contracts will disappear to be replaced by the new regime, which the SRA have introduced. And I'm sorry, it's another initialism coming up, QWE, qualifying work experience, QWE, qualifying work experience, which replaces the training contract. I mean, it's similar. It's still a 2-year period, but it's a different approach to the current training contract. And so that's why my advice is stick with the LPC and the training contract for this year if you're able to do so.
And what do you think the benefits of studying the LPC at the University of Law specifically would be? Yeah,
I mean, this is obviously my opportunity to blow, the University of Law trumpet, the ULaw trumpet. I suppose one simple answer is you'll be joining the largest community of LPC students in the country, because as I'm sure you're aware, Camilla, the University of Law is the largest provider of legal education in the UK, and we have the largest number of LPC students studying with us. So students do vote with their feet and come to us, in very large numbers. But I mean, putting that aside, I think the things that I would draw attention to, first of all, is around employability. We have a fantastic employability service, which offers a full range of services from advice, from CV reviews and help with application forms to mock interviews and so on. A huge amount of activity around the country within our employability service. And I think the outcome from that is very clear in our data. The latest data for which we have, which I think is 2021, 94% of our postgraduate students were employed within 15 months of graduating. So within 15 months of leaving us, 94% of our postgraduate students were in highly skilled occupations. And I think that speaks volumes for what we do to get students into work and into the career that they want. I think the other thing I would point to is our work and our very close links with the legal profession. So we work with 90 of the top 100 law firms. So we deliver training to 90 of the 100 top law firms. And with over 60 of those law firms, we have an exclusive arrangement for the LPC. And some very famous law firms, such as Clifford Chance, for example, send all their trainees exclusively to the University of Law for the legal practice course. So I think that's a huge endorsement of our programme and our success with working with the profession. I think I would also point the fact that we are hugely confident about getting our graduates and postgraduates into employment. We have an employment promise. So if you haven't got a job within 9 months of graduating from us, you get 100% of your fees back. And obviously terms and conditions apply to that. You have to be actively looking for a job, clearly. But if within 9 months of graduating from the LPC, you have not got a job, we will refund 100% of your fees. So I think our employment promise is really important. And students can look on the website for further details of that. And I think that's really demonstrates how confident we are in our ability to produce successful graduates who get the jobs and the careers that they want. I suppose, I mentioned it before. I think it's another reason to consider the University of Law is our campus network. As I say, we have 15 campuses around the country. You can study with us in Exeter. You can study with us in Norwich. We have 2 campuses in London where we do the legal practice course, Leeds, Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, and so on, all around the country. So it's a really easy way of studying in person if that's what you want. And all of our campuses have excellent transport links as well. So I think it's the convenience of studying at the University of Law. And then, of course, last but not least, we have the largest online campus for law in the country. So again, more students are studying online with us, the legal practice course online with us than anywhere else. Anywhere else. So we are a hugely successful online campus. So if you don't want to study in person, there is the online option. And in the end, I suppose we've always been the institution of choice for the profession. I mean, we have trained more practicing lawyers in the UK than any other institution. And certainly in 2021, more law students chose the University of Law than any other UK university. So as I say, the students do vote for us. I suppose the last point I would make is, we really care about our students. We do actually offer, I think, a very intimate personal experience to students. Although it does sound like all these big numbers people you're talking about, the largest provider of legal education and so on. Yes, but of course, our campus is a very personal experience. So if you're studying at our Bristol campus, you'll know the campus dean, you'll know your personal tutors. You have a huge amount of support from our staff. And I think it's the fact that, we have qualified practitioners, solicitors and barristers who will be teaching you the skills and the knowledge that you need in order to be a successful solicitor makes an enormous difference. Because in the end, the student success is our success. And the fact that you get the career and the job that you want is what makes us very, very proud to do what we do.
It's so funny that you said that, Peter, because I was going to add that you really care. And I didn't even know that you were going to say that. But when you said it, I was like, wow, you took the words right out of my mouth. Even just this week, I've had emails from the University of Law saying that you're running puppy therapy sessions, academic burnout prevention. And I also got a phone call from, I think, the wellbeing team, because we've got exams coming up and they just wanted to see if we needed any further support, which I thought was incredible. So yeah, I just wanted to add that. And so what other services does the University of Law provide that complement the LPC experience?
Well, I think, Camilla, you touched on one of the things that we take very seriously, and that's student well-being and the support that you need outside of the classroom in order to be successful. And obviously the last 2 years have been enormously stressful for students, because obviously the COVID pandemic has meant that a lot of students have been, were forced to study online. And although we reopened our campuses as soon as government regulations permitted us to do so, we obviously recognise that it has been a very challenging time for students. But even now we're back into sort of what I might call sort of normal times. Student well-being, mental health, and practical support for students is absolutely the heart of what we do. So whether that's counselling, whether that's advice around your career through our employability service, whether that's engagement with our clubs and societies. We have a very active student union as well. There's lots of opportunities to get involved. I think one thing I'm particularly proud of is our pro bono service. Listeners may not be aware of what pro bono is, but pro bono is the term that lawyers use to describe what you might call community service or supporting your local community. And this is in offering essentially legal services to your local community for free. Now, that might be legal advice. So, for example, we do have legal advice clinics around the country where members of the public do receive free legal advice from our students, obviously supervised by qualified solicitors. But there's a whole raft of pro bono activities that students can get involved with. And this is a fantastic way, firstly, of giving back to the communities in which we live and work, but secondly, obviously, for students getting real life experience of legal services. And I think that's, a really valuable thing. I think another point I would make is, I mentioned earlier about our fantastic campus locations, the fact that we have part-time and very flexible approach, but we also have different start dates, which again is unique. So we have start dates for the LPC this July. You could do the LPC this September, or you could do the LPC in January 2023. And I think, again, it's that flexibility, that putting students, genuinely at the heart of everything we do, I think is what makes us, different.
I completely agree. So who can listeners contact if they have specific questions off the back of this episode about the course?
Well, I'm always happy to hear from students, but I think practically the easiest way is to speak to one of our program consultants. And I can give you the telephone number for that now. And I'll also give you the email address, but obviously it's also on our website. So if you wanted to speak to somebody, the number to call is 0800 289 997, 0800 289 997, or otherwise just simply contact them by email. It's a really email address to remember. It's study, STUDY, study at law.ac.uk, study at law.ac.uk. And you can make an appointment and you get a call back, and one of our student advisors would be absolutely delighted to speak with you and to answer questions further. Alternatively, if you want to do a campus tour, that can be booked, so you can have a look around, you can meet some of the staff. We're always delighted to see prospective students who want to have a look around and see where they'll be studying.
Great. And I'll leave the details in the description box of the podcast as well, so that listeners can find that easily. So when we were planning this episode, we went out to our social media following and we asked if anyone had any specific questions for you in relation to the LPC. And we had a question come in from a listener about the benefits of doing a master's and the difference between an LLM and an MSc. So I wondered if you could provide some information about that.
Yep, absolutely delighted to deal with that question. So the SRA, the minimum requirement is you do a legal practice course. And at the end of that, you get a certificate, which means that you've completed the legal practice course. In other words, you've done what the SRA say is you have to do. We're conscious, though, that obviously we teach our LPC as a master's level program. So it's a level 7 program in terms of higher education speak. In other words, it's a master's level program in terms of the type of activities, the analysis, the synthesis that you have to do. The engagement with knowledge is at level 7. It's a master's level program. And therefore, we also deliver the legal practice course as part of a master's degree. And we offer 2 types of master's degree. We offer an MSc in law, business and management, and that includes the legal practice course. So 2/3 of that program, of that degree, is the legal practice course. So you do the legal practice course, and then you should do some additional content that I'll come on to in a moment. But we also offer it as an LLM. So it's an LLM, including the legal practice course with additional content. So if you choose to do the MSc, you do 2 additional modules. So you do the legal practice course, which I've described earlier, the 3 compulsory subjects, the electives and the skills and so on. You do the LPC, And then to get the MSc in Law, Business and Management, you do 2 additional modules. You do a taught module in Law and Business, and that looks at how the city works, the economy, the business environment, globalization. You look at management, you do some financial analysis, a look at corporate finance, business development and strategy. So you do the Law and Business module. And then separately, you do a case study project. And that's a self-study research module based on some of the themes that we will have explored in the taught Law and Business module. So that's our MSc in Law, Business and Management that incorporates the legal practice course and has 2 additional modules. We then have another option, which is our LLM in professional legal practice. And rather than doing business study, you study more law. So you could do, for example, another elective, a 4th elective, as well as a professional practice legal research project. And if you do, say, another additional elective module plus the independent research project, you get an LPC LLM in professional legal practice. And I think the attraction of doing those for many students is that if you're covering the business modules in particular, you are coming to the law firm for your training contract with additional knowledge and skills. Because certainly if you're going into commercial practice, most of the clients that the law firm will be advising are businesses. And an understanding of how businesses work and operate, how they grow and develop, how they raise money, how the city works and so on, is really helpful for that. The second reason, of course, is that any successful law firm is also a successful business. So again, having some understanding of how businesses work is also, I think, crucial. The attraction of the LLM is an ability to do a 4th elective, I think, to just another 4th specialist area, bearing in mind, of course, that in the traditional training contract, you will have 4 training seats to cover, and that's another additional, knowledge area that you will bring to the training contract. Another reason to consider doing a master's degree as part of the LPC is, of course, you may be able to get a graduate loan for that as well. So you may be able to obtain funding in order to do that program, which again could be attractive to many students.
That's really helpful. Thank you for explaining. And yeah, I personally chose to do the extra module because I thought it'd be really helpful. I don't know what seats I'm going to do yet, but I thought the more areas of law that I know, the better, I hope.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the questions. So thank you so much, Peter, for coming on the podcast and for explaining all about the LPC and the benefits of taking it this September or July or any other month.
Or January next year, indeed.
Absolutely, yes. So thank you so much for that. And thank you to all the listeners for tuning in. Like we said, the details are in the description box of the podcast. So if you do have any questions, then please do contact the University of Law or send us at the Student Lawyer a message and we will try and facilitate an answer for you. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye, thank you.
To hear more of the Student Lawyers podcast, hit the subscribe button and leave us a star rating and review. If you would like to join the Student Lawyer as a writer, please email hello@thestudentlawyer.com.